Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shalene Media Productions. Today we're going to show you the meat eater recipe on how to make a spicy orange marinade steak. And the meat that I'm going to be using is a tenderloin from the buck that I killed this past year, and I'll show you guys a picture of that real quick. And I'm just so thankful to be able to harvest that deer. And you know, it's coming up on Easter time, and I have the chance to share what is left of this tenderloin with my family and my friends around the holiday season. And I just can't wait, and I'm so thankful to be able to have this to enjoy. So stay tuned and we'll get into all the ingredients needed to create the spicy orange marinade steak, which is a meat eater recipe. Thanks. Okay, the first ingredient, of course, is going to be your deer meat. Obviously you got to have that. I prefer the back strap or maybe a round roast. You can cut that in steaks and use that as well. I've done that and it works really well. But since I had tenderloin left over, I was going to go ahead and use it. The next thing you'll need, as you can see there, is an orange, and you will take the orange zest off of that. I think it's just a teaspoon is all you'll need. But we'll get into all that later on. But yeah, definitely got to have an orange. I use extra virgin olive oil. I use garlic cloves. And then those red pepper flakes there are optional. If you want a little spice, you can use it. Since I'm feeding the whole family, I've opted out of using the red pepper flakes, but I want to include it in there so you guys know exactly what the recipe calls for. Next is some of the oregano leaves. You'll need those. Then you'll need kosher salt and black pepper. So that rounds out what you need for the ingredients. Just some simple ingredients you can pick up at any local food store. Right now moving over into some of the equipment you will need. First up we have the measuring cup. You'll need that for your orange juice. Then we have a tablespoon, way to measure the tablespoon, then a way to measure a teaspoon. So you'll need that as well. And then the next is going to be some sort of blender. Any sort of blender will work, just to chop everything up and create the nice marinade, liquid marinade. Then you will need a cheese grater to create your orange zest, to run your orange along there and get that orange peel off of there to create your zest. And then for cooking, you're going to need some sort of utensil, you know, to go ahead and pick up your meat with. Other than that, you're going to need a meat thermometer and some sort of skillet. I opted to go with the cast iron skillet. I think it does a very good job, and I just enjoy using cast iron. So that rounds out the materials that we're going to need to make the spicy orange marinade. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this marinade going. Here is the meat. I've still got some trimming to do along there to get all that silver skin off. So that's what you want to do. Just take it off of the deer or elk or whatever you're harvesting, and go ahead and try to trim all of that silver skin off that you can until it is just meat only. That way you avoid any tough issues whenever you're cooking the meat and eating the meat. First step is to go ahead and create the orange zest. So we'll just take our cheese grater here, and all we have to do is go ahead and run that orange down the cheese grater, and that creates the zest. But basically it makes the zest out of the peel, which I'm sure most of you know what I'm talking about, but those of you who don't, so all of that that's left is the zest. We'll take that off of there and include that into our marinade. Alright, now that we have our 1 teaspoon of orange zest, we'll go ahead and add that into our blender cup there, and move on to the next step. For the next step, you will need half a cup of orange juice. It's about perfect right there. Now that we have that poured into our blender cup, we'll go ahead and move on to the olive oil. The recipe calls for 4 tablespoons of olive oil. There is 1. And 4. Awesome. Next up, we will need 6 cloves of garlic. So you just get your whole piece of garlic there, and then you go ahead and get out each individual clove like that. Clean it up, make sure all the white stuff is off of it. I still got some stuff I need to get off of it, like that there. And also you take this kind of brown outer shell, if I can break it there. I mean, it should look like that white underneath. So clear everything off, all this extra stuff, and to where it's just white, and then we'll get our 6 garlic cloves and toss them in our blender cup. Okay, so now on the bottom there we have our 6 cloves of garlic all cleaned off and ready to throw in the cup. And next it calls for 2 tablespoons of oregano leaves. So we'll add that in there now. There's 1. And then there's 2. Awesome, smells really good. At this point you can use 2 tablespoons of crushed red pepper, but I opted out of it because, you know, it's a little bit too spicy. I tried it, you know, the first couple times and it was pretty hot, so I decided just to opt out of it altogether, and it doesn't affect the quality any, just takes the spice out of it. Next we're going to go ahead and do 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Now on to the pepper. Now we're going to go ahead and use the black pepper, 2 teaspoons as well. And that's it for the ingredients. Now we're going to go ahead and blend it up. Okay, now we have the lid on nice and tight. We'll go ahead and blend all this together pretty quick. Alright, there you go. Blend it up till it's nice and smooth, and it'll have a consistency similar to what I would call, you know, similar to honey mustard almost. So you can see that there dripping down, and then also inside. I'm trying to tilt it for you guys, but it's kind of like a honey mustard liquid. And so now we'll go ahead and put our meat in a container and go ahead and pour this marinade on there, and we'll show you guys that, and then we'll put it in the fridge and let it marinate for a day or 2 and then cook it. Okay, now I've got my deer meat trimmed up to the best of my abilities. So now we're going to go ahead and pour this in, and hopefully it covers all of the deer meat. And that's another thing that I will mention to you guys is I went ahead and doubled this recipe. I didn't say that during the measurements so I wouldn't confuse you guys, but I went ahead and doubled this recipe because I knew with the amount of meat I have that I'm going to need to add some extra ingredients in there so we can have enough marinade. But you can see it kind of looks like honey mustard almost, and it covers it quite nicely. I'll press down on some of this deer meat and kind of allow that to the marinade to sit on top of everything. But you can go in, if you don't have something quite this big, you can go in and flip those pieces every now and then, which I've done that before. You can flip those around and make sure the marinade's touching every part of the deer meat. And so what I did was I took the deer meat out last night and put it in the fridge to let it thaw out some overnight, and then now I went ahead and made the marinade, and it'll marinate for a full day. You can let it marinate probably up to 2 days, and then I will cook it the next day. So basically it's kind of a 3-day process. First night, just set your meat out and let it thaw. Then the second day you can go ahead and put it in your marinade, and then the third day you'll go ahead and cook it. So hope this helped you guys, and so now we'll see you tomorrow on the cooking side of things. We are going to go ahead and cook these tenderloins on the cast iron skillet there. So a couple of things you're going to need. You're going to need some vegetable oil there, and also I use a meat thermometer, and that is just to make sure that my internal temperature of the meat gets up to 125 degrees. So 125 degrees is medium rare. If you want it a little bit more medium, then you can go up to 130 degrees. But for us and our family, we like to eat it at medium rare, which is 125 degrees internal temperature. So what you're going to want to do first is take that vegetable oil and coat the bottom of it pretty liberally, and then we're going to go ahead and turn it to medium heat on the stove top. Now we put some vegetable oil in the bottom there, And that's probably enough there, just enough to coat the bottom. I could swirl it around and coat the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and turn that burner on medium. If you can see that. I know there's a glare there. There it is. Turn that on medium, just like that. We're going to let that grease get warmed up for a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and put our steaks in the cast iron skillet. Alright guys, now that the cast iron skillet's heated up, we're going to go ahead and put a couple of these steaks at a time into the skillet here. Oh yeah, that was really good right there. Alright, we got them spaced out good, and they're going to start cooking. So when it gets really hot, you may need to warm up a little bit more, but once it starts getting hot, it'll cook pretty good. And you want to leave it on medium heat, so that way you don't overdo the outside and underdo the inside. So I've done it before where I've had it too hot and the meat ends up being really charred on the outside, and then it's still pretty rare on the inside. So medium heat's really good, and just flip it every couple of minutes and you'll be on your way. So make sure to use that meat thermometer, and we'll check back in whenever it starts heating up pretty good here in a second. Alright, now that it's cooking pretty good, we're going to go ahead and do our first flip here. We're off to a good start. Looking pretty good. Yeah, it'll need to cook for quite a while longer, so we'll just check back whenever it's closer to finished. Okay guys, now it's been cooking for a little bit, maybe about 10 minutes or so. We're going to go ahead and take an internal temperature reading with our meat thermometer right there. So we're going to do that real quick and show you guys what the temperature is right now. So I always stick it in the side, in the fattest side, and stick it in there quite a ways, as good as you can. We'll see what the temperature is. So right now we're at 111 degrees, so we have about 14 to 16 degrees to go to get to our 125 mark. Maybe a couple degrees more than that will be just fine, and we'll test out the other one as well. So see, it just went up a couple degrees. So we're getting closer to being done. But yeah, make sure you cook that to at least 125 for a nice medium rare texture and flavor. Oh, it smells so good. Okay, now for the temperature on the other one. Same thing. Stick it in the side there. That one was a little easier to get it in there. We'll see what it's reading. It's looking like, I think it's 115, looks like. Oh wait, no, it just recalculated. It's about 111. So it's just a little bit behind this other one on the bottom, which makes sense because the one on the top of your screen is just a little bit fatter than the one on the bottom. So, you know, the fatter they are, the longer it takes them to get to that internal temperature, and the skinnier they are, the flatter they are, the faster it'll get to the appropriate internal temperature. So keep that in mind. Alright guys, so the bottom one is now done. It's showing 133, so I went a little bit over, and which isn't bad at all. So it's going to be just a hair bit more medium than medium rare. So it's going to be just about perfect, and we're going to check the top one real quick, but the bottom one is done. Alright, here we go. Oh yeah, that was really good. Alright, so there's the first one. Alright, so now it looks like the last one is done too. It's right at about 133, just the same as the first one. So that'll be perfect. Now we'll go ahead and take this one out and we'll cut into them. Oh yeah, looks like a really good piece of meat there. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and cut into this and see how we did. So we're going to go ahead and cut into this one here. See how it is there. Make sure I'm not trying to get in your guys' way. Yep, pretty tender. Look at that. That is a good chunk of meat right there. A little bit more medium than medium rare, but just about perfect. That's going to be exactly what we want. So remember, 125 for medium rare and 135, I believe, for medium. So keep that in mind. Alright, here's the first taste of this deer backstrap or tenderloin, whichever one you want to call it. So it turned out really good. A nice medium rare, maybe a little bit more medium. Perfect coloration. That is so good. Nice and tender, great flavor. I think anybody would love to eat this. It's incredible. So don't be afraid to take this recipe and use your backstrap for it and take this to a nice family event. They're going to be in awe of how incredible it is. I know I love enjoying the time spent with family, and even more so, I love cooking wild game and introducing them to the wild game that is offered out in our woods and our forests in Missouri. So thank you guys so much. Take care. Make sure to hit that like button, share it, and most importantly, subscribe. We appreciate you guys so very much, and be looking forward for more content soon. So we love you all. Thank you. Be safe, and hey, we'll catch you on the next one.